You know what? I don't even remember my password.
I don't need to do this right now.
I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, July 22nd, 2024, at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands are an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Bush? Here. Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Ake?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Wingard?
Here.
Vice Mayor Alsager?
Here.
Mayor Kirschbacher?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Do we have feedback?
What? Yeah, we have feedback.
That's okay. I just want to make sure when we go, we don't move forward with feedback. All right, we have a quorum, so we will continue. We're moving on to proclamations and presentations. Our first up is an introduction to the Human Resource Administrative Assistant, Allie Rich.
Good evening, City Commission. I'm Shar Rapun, Director of Human Resources. I'm here tonight to introduce new staff member Allie Rich as the Administrative Assistant for the Human Resources Department. Allie comes to us from Crossan Lincoln Woodworks, where she managed the front office, provided excellent customer service, built relationships, and juggled multiple priorities with strong attention to detail. A recent graduate of Saginaw Valley State University, Allie holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Management degree. Allie had an opportunity to tour city's facilities this afternoon, spending time at the airport, the Department of Public Safety, Parks, Streets Department, Water Resource Recovery Facility, and the water plant. A special thanks to Bill Brickner, Joe Bryant, Zoe DeFider, Zach Griffith, Amy Murphy, Jamie Raymond, and Matt Weaver for their time as tour guides today. We're thrilled to have Allie as part of our Human Resources team. Thank you.
All right, welcome, Allie. Now we're going to move on to the introduction of the assistant to the city manager, Katie Lamore.
Yes.
Excellent.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to introduce a new member to our Mount Pleasant family, Katie Lamore. Katie joins us from Central Michigan University, where she previously served as an administrative secretary underneath the dean for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Katie brings with her a wealth of experience and knowledge, having graduated from Central Michigan University with a bachelor's degree in communication disorders and psychology. Please join me in welcoming Katie to our team.
All right, this time I'm going to read a proclamation for Park and Recreation Professionals Day. Phil, can you step forward? Whereas the Parks and Recreation field is a diverse and comprehensive system that improves personal, social, environmental, and economic health. And whereas the benefits of the parks and recreation services that enrich the lives of its citizens are important and help make this community a desirable place to live, work, and visit. And whereas the skilled work of park and recreation professionals strengthens community cohesion and resiliency while connecting people with nature and each other and providing and promoting opportunities for healthful living, social equality, social equity, and environmental sustainability. And whereas the essential services that park and recreational professionals and volunteers perform to provide recreational and developmental enrichment for our children, youth, adults, and older adults are valued, and to ensure our parks and recreational spaces are clean, safe, inclusive, welcoming, and ready to use. Now therefore, I, Amy Perschbacher, Mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim July 19th, 2024 as Park and Recreation Professionals Day in the City of Mount Pleasant, and urge residents to recognize and honor the contributions of the park and recreational professionals in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and the great seal of the City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, this 22nd day of July, 2024. Thank you. All right, at this time, we're moving on to a presentation on the 2024 mid-year goals and objectives. Manager dissents.
I do have a presentation here, if we can get this up on the screen. Perfect. There we go. All right. Good evening, City Commission. So if I can take you back, last year is when we set the goals for 2024. We set those in Q1 of the year prior to when we plan to implement them. We are now more than 6 months into the current fiscal year, and I'd just like to take the opportunity to give the City Commission and everyone at home an update as to where we're at on our various goals and objectives. As I did last year, in the far left column, you will see a couple of different colors. You're either going to see yellow or green. Green indicating those goals that have been completed to this date, yellow indicating those we are still working on. Last year, I did talk about red indicating those goals where we've hit such a major obstruction that we're not able to move forward. Luckily, we don't have any of those for 2024. So I'll talk about how even some of the goals where we know we're not going to be able to deliver in 2024, we're still working on those goals, and I think we're meeting the intent of what the City Commission wanted to see. I'll get into that in the presentation. First up, we have maintained stable and financially responsible operations. Underneath that, we have completed our required landfill remediation efforts. So the City Commission will recall that earlier this year, we had met with our consultants regarding the city's landfill. They had made the recommendation to continue testing at that site so we can get a full map of the contaminants at the site, and then that way we could try to prescribe the best treatment method for dealing with those contaminants. So we'll continue that testing this year, and then likely late this year, Q4, if not Q1 of next year, we'll have further recommendations on how to proceed in 2025. Scroll a little too far. Prepare a climate change preparedness plan. So we had a few things that have happened so far in 2024. My initial thought for delivery on this was Q2 of 2024, though I don't have a plan to hand over to the City Commission yet. We'd gotten a little bit of feedback from the City Commission on those things that we wanted to see in that plan, and so now the delivery of that plan is going to occur in Q4 of 2024. So far, we have a area-wide vulnerability assessment that was provided to us by a couple of different classes over at Central Michigan University. And then we are also working on reviewing the survey results from our climate change survey. That survey went out to everyone in the area, essentially trying to identify those vulnerabilities that homeowners are most concerned about in the area related to climate change, and then also asking a number of different questions related to their ability to mitigate climate change's effects, such as having air conditioning or plans for extreme cold events, those kind of things. We're taking a look at that. That will become part of the plan. And then I'm going to come to the City Commission likely within the next couple of months to talk about some of the goals and objectives that we want to see in that plan. A lot of that probably being steered by the Michigan Green Communities Program, which is headed up by both the MML in partnership with Eagle. So more to come on that later this year. Adopt best practices in asset management. Staff is currently working on this. We have onboarded our ActiVolve software, which is an asset management program software, allows us to better track our assets, identify them by age, and then also be able to plan the financial replacement or maintenance of those assets. But we're also working on a policy governing all things that the city owns to be covered in this asset management plan. And we plan to have that delivered to the City Commission by Q4 of this year. Look for ways to cut down or find ways to compensate for services provided to non-city customers without payment. Staff typically does this every year in tandem with our budget process, but in particular, a couple of programs that I know I've talked with the City Commission about as we set up the budget for 2024, and that is our peak programming and our recreation programming. Both require a lot of subsidization in one form or the other, and the idea was to try to identify ways to make those programs whole and to adequately charge for them as well too. So we'll have a recommendation to the City Commission, likely along with the timeline that we deliver the budget, so likely late Q3, early Q4 of this year. Monitor the city's tax base and develop interventions to stabilize. We do this ongoing. We do have a number of different cases with the Michigan Tax Tribunal as well too. So value appeals essentially on a number of multifamily buildings that we continue to work through that process on. But overall, I'm happy to report that it's looking like 2024 is still a very solid year for the housing market, at least in terms of valuations. We haven't seen value subsiding or receding at all. We continue to see that value increases in a lot of the homes that are on the market. Our next goal, continue positive and productive relationships with community partners, residents, and businesses. Create a workforce development program in partnership with Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center, CMU, and Mid-Michigan. We're looking at different programs that we can create, and we have worked with GI Tech in particular on a program that they have to try to drive more people into fire service. We're in partnership with Alma as well as GI Tech to deliver that, and so we work on that program. Central Michigan University is a institution that we have a long history with, and we have a number of different internships and also regular other programs that we partner with them on, whether it's specific class projects that help benefit the city or some of our recreation assistants that we hire on an annual basis. So we'll continue that partnership into the future. I think areas to identify where we could do further improvement is our relationship with Mid-Michigan, and in particular looking at the programs that they offer and how can we plug into more of those students. We'll continue this throughout 2024. Renew the city's redevelopment ready community certification. Happy to say that we had a presentation to the City Commission from RRC staff in May stating that we had received our recertification renewal, and so we're good for another 5 years, and we'll get to go through the process again in 2029. Provide safe accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists, expand walkability in Mount Pleasant, and continue the replacement sidewalk program. Every year, the city spends on average about $150,000 in either replacement or new sidewalks, and we are on track to do that this year. Everything is substantially completed, and we believe that we will have everything completed in Q3. Identify grants and partners to expand MMP-GKB trail and increase signage on the trail. So right now, as we've discussed with the City Commission, we know that we're in the MDOT process because we did receive a TAP grant for $400,000, which is let through MDOT, but then that puts us on their plan. So that means that the project will be a 2025 construction. We're currently undergoing the design phase of that project right now. Create a community-friendly space in our downtown area. This one is all about town center. And of course, I know I provide regular email updates to the City Commission, but very happy to say that the light poles have gone in. They're starting to put the heads on those light poles as well too. From here, we anticipate moving forward with concrete, and it's looking like we'll be laying the second course of asphalt as soon as next week. A couple of things to be aware on that project though. We do have some of the restroom amenities that are still on back order. We're anticipating those to deliver either late late August or early September of this year. And then also the grassy area is going to be hydro-seeded this year, so we're still going to have some sort of a barrier to try to keep people off of the fresh growing grass, but we anticipate to open that back up in spring of next year. Provide a great park system and expand our sports, events, and recreation program offerings. Upgrade and add universal access to Chippewater's park playground structure. We had completed that in Q2 of this year. Create recreation programs identified in the Recreation Needs Assessment. That Recreation Needs Assessment was supplied to staff in Q1 of this year. We are continuing to review the results of the Recreation Needs Assessment and trying to develop a strategic plan as to how we would move forward with some of that recreation programming. We'll have that delivered by Q4 of this year. Create a sense of place by promoting the Meet Here branding and working to become a cool destination. Promote that Mount Pleasant is centrally located. We met with the communications team and we're looking at how we can kind of combine that with our Meet Here branding as well too. And we anticipate having deliverables on that in Q3 of this year, so within the next couple of months. Work with community partners to support an event that brings more people to Mount Pleasant. This is one we initially identified in trying to hold the event in 2024, though it doesn't look like that's going to be possible. But we do have a number of different stakeholders at the table, people who are involved in current events, people who are involved in larger scale events as well too. And we're still looking to bring on more stakeholders within the community. So we had talks just last week, which I think were very promising, to set up a potential event in 2025 if we can get all the stakeholders on board with it. And then also, I think one of the tricky parts will be trying to identify dates which hotels are not so booked up from a number of different other things. But we continue to move forward on this. And again, this is one of those, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to deliver in 2024, but we feel very confident about the work that we're doing in 2024, that something should be able to happen in 2025. Work with community partners to support an event that brings more. I just read that one. Continue to monitor the analytics on our communication channels and make sure our information stays fresh and relevant. We played with this report a bit, and I think that the report is a really good place that it starts to really tell a story and also identify more trends, especially of what we're doing on social media. Are we getting more followers, less followers? Are we getting more engagement, less engagement? So we'll continue to monitor those analytics on a quarterly basis and identify trends as we go. And if we start to see things that are very successful, continue to try to model those. Or if we see things that are not successful, we'll start to change the strategy and implement something else. Address the housing market demands in our community, including homeownership opportunities, monitor and evaluate the performance of our pilot and NEZ programs. We're currently reviewing the NEZ program on a number of different applications that NEZ allows us to utilize. We would recommend highly that if we have the right development that the City Commission wanted to see go in, but they needed some sort of a tax incentive, NEZ could certainly work very well for new construction. One of the issues we're running into is trying to identify a neighborhood enterprise zone, which would be 10 contiguous properties, which you could apply for, let's say, home ownership upgrades. The way that the state formula works, it would be very difficult to implement that in an equitable way. So we're trying to look for other communities that have had success with that program. So we're still identifying how to best use that there. As for our pilot program, unfortunately, Spire Development, who was authorized to do the pilot program within the city of Mount Pleasant, was turned down for their MSHDA application. We're working with them on retooling it and trying to identify ways that they could score more points on that application. They have committed to turning in another application, which would be in Q4 of 2024. So I'll keep the City Commission updated as they move forward in that process. Maximize economic viability on Mission Street, engage stakeholders in future development options for the corridor. We're doing that right now with our Mission Street Corridor Improvement Plan and the planning committee that works through that. We plan to have deliverables in Q4 of this year. Determine interest in continuing the DDA and TIFA districts beyond 2025. So in May, we held that meeting with the City Commission, had a work session to discuss the 3 different TIFA districts that we have. And we have more to come on that. So we've taken the direction from the City Commission. We're implementing that. We'll circle back to the City Commission as we need commission approvals in order to move forward with those actions. And then lastly, prepare Mount Pleasant Center for future development opportunities. This goal is, of course, on hold as we continue to make our way through the appeals process in the appeals court. With that, I'm happy to go ahead and take any questions from the City Commission.
Commissioner Bush?
Have we invited the Saginaw Chippewa Indian College to be part of the conversation on workforce development?
It's not one that I have reached out directly, but I think that's a fantastic idea, Commissioner. And I will certainly add that because I think it makes a lot of sense.
Commissioner Eke?
Okay, so Commissioner Bush has asked one of my questions, but the second one has to do with,
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Commissioner Bush just asked one of my questions in terms of relationship with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. The second part of my question has to do with the goal where we talk about creating a sense of place. I do recall that we talked about diversity and inclusion during our conversation, and I'm wondering where that goes in terms of achieving that particular goal. I'm looking at this thinking that that's probably where it could go in, the idea of being an inclusive, welcoming community, when you're talking about, creating a sense of place. And that's important.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do apologize, Commissioner, because I think as part of that conversation, you and I were going to connect on the back end, and I think I failed to do so.
Okay.
I'm wondering if maybe I can reach out to you after this meeting, we can connect on some of those ideas.
Absolutely, thank you.
Fantastic.
Commissioner Bush?
To follow up on that too, making sure that accessibility is also included in some of those conversations. I think that's something we were going to connect on, and we haven't either.
Yeah, I will definitely make sure to connect with you then after this.
Okay.
Perfect.
Commissioner Wingard?
Talking about the Spire pilot program, was there any, on our end, anything we could have done, in the initial rounds, as feedback to, the city commission, as we could look at other programs or other housing programs, kind of just going off of that, housing's a big issue and everything, so is there anything we could build upon or just for us to keep front of mind?
It's always hard to say, especially as, let's say, pre-planning goes, just because every project's going to be very different. So it's just very hard to say. Spire does pilot projects. That seems to be their main thing, it seems. So it works out very well for them. But other, let's just say other partners, such as the folks next door, they partook in an NEZ program in order to move forward with that, as well as a brownfield as well too. So every project's got its different quirks, so it's hard to say implementing something ahead of time would be beneficial until the project comes forward. And that's what we always do on our end when we have our administrative meetings with developers, is to try to identify what is the real need here, and then where we might be able to come in and offer some sort of an incentive program if it's warranted or necessary. Other things that we're trying to do with, let's say, Spire, is we're trying to identify a potential partnership with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe on that one as well too. And I know that we've connected Spire directly to their folks to try to figure out if there's a good benefit there that will help them out.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chapman?
I had a question about that. I've talked to a couple different developers, and they seem to think that for whatever reason, the points are just not going to be there for this project up the hill. And I don't quite understand that. What is the point system through Michigan based on that they would believe that other developers would think it's just not going to work there?
Yeah, I don't know all of the scoring criteria, but having gone through the process, at least on our end, and if you recall, there were two initial proposals that were being considered. The one had to pull it because MISTA had kind of changed their program rules. So I know, for instance, what affected that proposal was its distance to the library. The idea is that they want a site to be within, and we're considered a metropolitan area, an area of high density, right? So you have to have a library in order to maximize your points on that particular condition. You have to have your location within 1 mile of the library. That's very tough when we have one single branch here within the city. We
Can
don't
we
have
just put one
multiple
of those
branches.
boxes, those little lending libraries?
No, they particularly define library, so it really kind of doesn't allow us to skirt the issue on that. So things like that, proximity to your grocery stores, healthcare, those kind of things. So I know that's a big part of the point system. On the business proposal end, I don't know that one as well, because we didn't have to really dissect, obviously, into how all of that works.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, Commissioner Eke?
Okay, so can we go back to where you talk about the landfill remediation?
You said landfill mitigation?
Yeah, I think it's very
Top
early.
one.
Yeah, right, almost at it.
Right there.
Okay, so I'm thinking in terms of, you were talking about testing. All right, so I'm not going to ask you for a catalog of what we're testing, but I'm preoccupied with PFAS because it keeps coming up, keeps coming up, it keeps coming up. And I'm concerned about that. And so my question again is the extent to which we're testing for that, especially if we're doing this, and especially also if we're thinking about, responsible climate, preparedness plan and environment, it has to include concern for, the environment or what is in the space in which we live. So testing for PFAS.
Yep. So we do test for PFAS at the site, and there is PFAS at the site.
Yeah.
From what we have tested so far, it seems that the PFAS is relegated essentially at the site.
So
But
it's not
obviously,
moving.
That is our current understanding, but that is part of the reason why we want to have continued testing at the site, is to ensure that it's not moving anywhere else, or it's not affecting any other bodies of water. Obviously, the river is not too far from there. We do, and I do want to always underline this, we continue every year to test water sources within the city. Our drinking water supply has 0 PFAS in it, so I always want to underline that when we're talking about it, and make sure that everyone understands these are very two separate issues. The groundwater that is there has not impacted our drinking water at all.
Okay, cool. All right, so, and then the town center, okay? We might need Ms. Sponsler to show up here at some point, but maybe not today, okay? So as we think about, this is question, I'm asking this question because people have asked me about that. So, and I don't recall everything that is going to be at the town center. So, what capabilities would it have in terms of, I know that we're going to have charging station there for e-vehicles. What about, outlets for people with computers, and all of that, okay? So what do we have? I mean, we get a lot of information. I can't remember everything that, that was, presented in terms of what will be available.
Yeah, so
But
as a reminder, we've increased the green space by threefold, and that is with the plans to utilize the space as an event area for the outdoors in the future. We've talked about relocating some of our former Broadway assets where we had eating along the sidewalk and street. That might be relocated there as well too. We have the car chargers, as you had indicated, the additional restrooms, which will service the special events function and also for general use in the space, and the expansion of the parking lot area by 18 spaces as well.
okay, cool. So I'm going to assume that you, as city manager, will provide intermittent updates on our website in terms of reminding people what's going to be there, because the danger is not communicating well. And I'm getting these questions from people, right? Okay.
Yeah, probably, but one of the best ways for folks to follow too, and I understand, again, not everyone is on social media, but Michelle Sponsler, our downtown development director, has done a great job, especially updating on social media, because you can include pictures on there, which is really great. So she's done a really good job of cataloging the progress as it happens and updating the community on that. So I encourage anyone who is out there, that's probably the best way to find at least very regular updates on a very regular basis. Otherwise, we'll continue to utilize our other channels as well to communicate to the public, especially as we draw closer to an opening date for that parking lot.
I agree. Social media is important, but not, some of the people talking to me are not on social media. So thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, Manager.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to move to additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections for the agenda tonight? Commissioner Wingard?
This might be, I don't know what copy of the minutes this was on. Manager just since I'd addressed this earlier, in consent items, it should be for 402 North Arnold Street, not 402 South Arnold Street.
So number 9,
Number 9, yes, consent items number 9.
thank you. Are there any other additions, deletions, or corrections? All right, I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented with the correction.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented with the correction.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, we are going to move to public input on agenda items. This is where the public can step forward to the podium and speak on any item that's on the agenda. You will be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you may use the raised hand feature on Zoom or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak at this time? Is there anyone on Zoom?
No raised hands, no emails.
All right. There are no raised hands or emails on Zoom. I don't see anyone rushing to the podium. So I'm going to close the public input on agenda items, and we will move to receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSenz.
Receipt of petitions and communications includes the second quarter investment report, and the minutes of the Planning Commission from June.
All right. We're going to move on to the consent items. Are there any consent items that the commission wishes to move off the consent and move into the regular agenda? Seeing none, Manager DeSenz.
Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held July 8, 2024, consider appointment of a voting delegate and alternate for the Michigan Municipal League, consider approval of a contract with Willys Contracting to raise and restore 402 North Arnold Street and 1306 Upton Street, and consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent items.
Before we
Yes.
move, could I just ask, could you define raise and restore for me? I was under the impression that raising the building would just be like leveling the building. Could you just define that for me?
You know what, if I can I bring up our building official, Brian Kench, because he's very intimate in developing the RFP and having communicated with contractors as well too, so he can speak much more to the plan than I can.
I thought this would be a quicker thing. Sorry. Thank
No,
you,
you're
Brian,
fine.
for being up here. Sorry about
I had
that.
1 foot out the door almost. No, not a problem. Willys Contracting is the company that we recommended that you approve tonight. What they would do is take all the buildings down under permits, make sure that we get all our utilities disconnected. Foundations will come back out of the site. They'll bring everything back up to grade with clean fill sand, 4 inches of topsoil, and then seed it. And so we should have 2 sites effectively ready for new buildings.
Basically just empty lots.
Empty
I heard
lots.
restore and my mind automatically went to, are we redoing these buildings? No.
They're beyond restoration, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion to accept the consent items?
I move to accept the consent item.
Is there a second?
I'll
All right.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We do not have any public hearings tonight, so we will move on to new business. We're going to consider the approval of the purchase of 2 police motorcycles and accompanying budget amendment. Who's going to take reins on this?
Let me go ahead and tee up Director Loria, and then I will hand it off to him.
Okay.
Staff is interested in the purchase of 2 police motorcycles through BMW for a total purchase price of $62,378. The purchase is budget neutral and utilizes savings that this department has achieved over the last 7 months of the fiscal year. Public Safety Director Paul Loria is here to discuss the proposed purchase and answer any questions you may have. With that, I will hand it to him.
Good evening. Just as the city manager said, this is the purchase for 2 motorcycles. We currently have 6 officers that are, well, they're still employed with us, that are motorcycle certified. In the past, we have taken advantage of the Harley-Davidson lease program. And what that program was a lease of, we leased as many as 4 in previous years, but kind of settled on 2. The last, I'd say probably 10 years. And at the end of every season, they come and pick them up, and then we get new ones. Well, that program locally has been discontinued, and this is an effort to replace those motorcycles. The benefit of these is at the end of every season, we'd have to take the striping off, take all the equipment, add on equipment, and then while $2,500 a piece for a lease for a Harley seems great, and you'd get a new one every year, the carryover of equipment was sometimes difficult, especially as they change things, because then it wouldn't fit. And then you're buying new equipment, then they'd make a slight adjustment. So these BMWs are what the state police and many other jurisdictions use. However you feel, I'm not dogging on any one manufacturer or anything like that, but a lot more practical, a lot cooler to drive, believe it or not. Harleys get a little hot sometimes. And it is, these motorcycles can be used just as a patrol car. The only thing is we don't give anybody rides on the back. So if you were to arrest somebody, you don't say hop on and you call a patrol car, and the patrol car comes over and escorts. So they're very useful tool for traffic enforcement, especially those laws that are hard to enforce, like cell phone in the hand, texting while driving, seat belt enforcement, and then of course the speeding and everything else. You can pull right alongside a vehicle, pierce down in there and see. They're a great tool. PR events, parades, escorts, funerals. We have our biking paths that we can't get patrol cars down, especially where the bridges are. These, you can do that in the middle of the night, and we do get complaints down there, especially in the summer. Obviously in the winter, they're not gonna be going through, snow with these things, but they would be very useful in that regard. So the estimated usage life is anywhere from 10 to 15 years.
Okay. So you just want to have a BMW motorbike?
Two. I appreciate the fact that you were able to find some cost-saving efforts, and so that we are able to do this. And I think that purchasing these two motorcycles is going to be a cost saving for us as well. It's definitely going to be less than leasing. Commissioner Wingard.
And the other thing it does is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term of hot seating, but it's patrol cars that are being driven shift after shift after shift. I'm not saying a car gets tired by any stretch, but you know what, when they can, chill out for, a shift and they're not hot seated, this just gives us another avenue to deliver our services and give some relief to the patrol vehicle fleet as well.
Commissioner Wingard.
I'm interested to know amount of usage for the motorcycles in an average year or so. Admittedly, I haven't had a whole lot of run-ins with the local police department and everything, but for the life of me, I can't remember a time actually seeing any law enforcement in the area using a bike, not just the local, not just our department, but anyone in the local area.
The Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Police have them. But I would say the first comment that I am certified, but the first comment you get when you make a traffic stop is, oh my God, I didn't even see you. I didn't even know Mount Pleasant had motorcycles. I'm not suggesting that you missed it. I wouldn't accuse you of that, but people don't expect it. And that's what makes them effective. So the ones we turned in had approximately 5,000 miles on them, which when you think about an 8 or 9 square mile city, and the riding time of, well, you could probably ride a Harley in the winter because it gives off so much heat, but May to the end of October, maybe you get into November some. So, yeah.
Gotcha. What's the insurance, what's insurance look like, liability look like on that versus a regular patrol car?
If you're talking about to insure the vehicle, that would be either Heather or finance director Saladin. They take care of that.
Gotcha.
But the liability is no different than when you put an officer in the seat of a vehicle. They have to be certified. We don't just pick an officer and say, you're riding the motorcycle today. Good luck, have fun. It's a 2-week course. It is the most difficult course physically that I have ever done. It's 2 weeks long. I bet you I dumped the bike. This will really ooze confidence. I bet you I dumped the bike 1,000 times. And you pick it up and you get back on it. But you come out of that class and you can maneuver. It's unbelievable. But we send officers to that, and you think about sending someone away for 2 weeks to get certified, upfitting them with all the equipment that it takes, helmets, communication systems, eye protection gloves, all that sort of thing. They're very well equipped, very well qualified, certified, and in all our years, and I've been here since 1997, we have tipped over, because I have tipped over, where I stopped the car and then I go to turn around to go back to my spot and I flop over. I've done that, but we've only had one crash with an officer since that time in the history of our motorcycles since 97, and that resulted in pretty good damage to the bike, but minor injuries to the officer.
Commissioner Eke.
So, Director Laurie, since you're talking about equipment that you provide the riders of the motorcycle, I'm going to assume that the body equipment will be similar to what a cop using in a car would have, such as, they'll have body cameras also.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
None of that goes away.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the only thing that's different is just the machine,
Yeah, and if you want
the
to,
vehicle.
and if you want to give me another $10,000 per bike, I can even put a computer in the back of it for an officer to make it exactly like a car.
Okay.
And maybe we could maybe do sidecars.
Ooh,
No.
all right. Don't get carried away, okay?
Okay.
Commissioner Bush.
I want to point out and clarify something that Manager DeScent said, is that this is considered a budget neutral decision due to cost saving that has happened within the department. Always love to hear that. Also, my understanding would be that a motorcycle is probably a more environmentally friendly way to provide police officering. Also, I think it's a good way to relationship building, because I do remember, because like you said, you can get face-to-face with people, and I remember when the Black Lives Matters marches were happening, and the police provided such excellent support for that. Police on motorcycles being part of the experience, part of the community, so people could talk and see people face-to-face. And at any rate, I think that's, is that you? I think that's really important, and motorcycles are a lot easier to do those things when it comes to public events, to get close to people.
Yeah. I think one other item though is I know the last set of vehicles that we had approved though, part of the selling point is that we bought larger vehicles to hold more equipment also. So that was something that was factored into the last decision regarding vehicles for the police department.
Different tool for different
I
jobs.
think it was a different task altogether.
Commissioner Chapman?
I may be the only motorcycle rider here, I'm not sure, but I have a
saw
gold wing instead of BMW, but, I wonder, how much does it cost to outfit a motorcycle every year? When you had to move get all the equipment out?
If it's just an equipment
Yeah.
switchover, it runs about probably right around $1,200, 12 to 1,500. When you got to put your markings down.
So over the course of 10 years, $40,000 for a motorcycle that we don't own.
If
Right. If
all
it's-
the
yeah.
equipment carries over, yes.
So for 31,000, you won't ever have to do that again, right? I mean, basically.
Until you-
And I will tell you, 5,000 miles, I'm shocked by that. I have a 23-year-old motorcycle that has 20,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
So it is used a lot, evidently. I think that's a cool thing. I'm in support of it. I think it makes more sense. It's cheaper, and especially the idea of being able to pull right up to a car. I think that's a great idea. So.
Commissioner Eke?
I'm going to vote in support of this. I think it's important, as we talk about community building, assisting the city manager to achieve one of his goals, right? And also, it's important to have a very diverse set of, equipments that we use. As you were saying, narrow spaces, cars don't get into narrow spaces, and motorbikes do. So long as the liability or insurance is taken care of and, rider is safe, and, those equipments that you talked about would be consistent with what obtains for an officer using a car, okay? I'm fine. And the cost saving, good.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that I don't have the text in front of me,
Consider approval.
that we consider approval of the purchase of 2 police motorcycles and accompanying budget amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the purchase of 2 motorcycles, police motorcycles and accompanying budget amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Okay. We're going to move on to number 12, consider approval of a purchase of a detective vehicle at a cost not to exceed $40,000. Manager DeSantis.
I'm going to go ahead and tee up the director again, who can talk about those specifics, but staff is interested in the purchase of a replacement unmarked vehicle for the police department. Staff is asking for the reallocation of $40,000, which was initially allocated to one project. That project ended up being completely grant funded, and so once again, we do have another budget neutral request coming to the city commission. It's the reallocation of the $40,000 for that project to the purchase of this vehicle. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Public Safety Director Paul Laurier to discuss some of the particulars.
We currently have 2 detective sergeants. Each of them have an unmarked vehicle. This is not any sort of special vehicle like a patrol vehicle that is pursuit rated and that sort of thing. So this is a vehicle that we would drive. And we brought one of them was going in for routine service, and it was found that the engine motor mounts on the frame were completely rusted through. And the only thing that was holding the engine in essentially was the transmission and front axle. And so it was a 2011 Taurus. So, you're talking about a vehicle, that's roughly 13 years old. 106,000 miles on it. But it wasn't something that We learned about it this year. We haven't driven it since. And when the interview room system was grant funded by Mint through Michigan State Police, I made the request to reallocate those funds to get a vehicle. I don't have a vehicle to tell you that I'm going to purchase because dealerships are not, by the time I go through the process of city commission approval, the dealership will not hold the vehicle for any period of time. So we have to have a fairly quick turnaround, and that's why I put in there that once we find a vehicle, it would be approved or authorized by the finance director and not to exceed the $40,000.
Are there any questions? Vice Mayor?
Just a comment that it sounds like the police department's being very conscious of using its resources wisely.
Commissioner Rowland?
So, in other words, you're asking for a pre-approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Bush?
Are you looking at dealerships primarily in Mount Pleasant?
No, we look at state contract. The other part of this is if we were to use the MI deal, they have generic MI deal vehicles available, but most of them are patrol vehicles. And then you have to order them. So right now, we have one detective car, essentially. Now, we do have a training car that is being used, but that one's the next to go.
Commissioner Ake?
So I'm going to ask you a sticky question. So I want you to rate this in order of urgency, in terms of urgency, rating 1 to 6, 6 being the top, really, really urgent. And then 1 is, it's not that urgent. So where are you right now?
We need another vehicle, an unmarked vehicle. I mean, we have 2 detectives.
And and only 1 is usable right now?
Yes,
Okay.
we do weekly trips to Grand Rapids, Grayling, Saginaw for lab. That doesn't even include if we have our pill drop program where we got to go to Grand Rapids and incinerate. They're in charge of all that. And so we have evidence that the detectives deliver to the crime lab for processing all over the state. The state tells us what lab we can go to, and then that doesn't even include the investigations that they do.
Okay,
So-
what I'm hearing from you, given what you just described, says to me this is urgent.
It is.
Okay, all right, that helps. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the purchase of a detective vehicle at a cost not to exceed $4,000. 40,000, right, 4,000, okay, sorry. No, it's a donkey, right? $40,000, an accompanying budget amendment. Okay, it's
Is there a second?
4000.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to consider approval of the contract with POTUM for the purchase of cemetery management software. Manager DeSense.
I'm going to go ahead and tee up our Parks and Recreation Director, Phil Biscorner. But staff is recommending the city purchase Pontum software for cemetery management. Pontum is a favorite software in cemetery management and is designed particularly for this application. The total cost of this software is $36,600. With that, I do want to turn it over to our Parks and Recreation Director, Phil Biscorner, who can talk about the particulars of this. I'll turn it over to him.
Okay, good evening. So basically what we've been working off of for the last several years is a system that was designed by our By Jason. And so luckily, we've had one staff member that has been here for 20 years, and that's Craig Brune, who is in charge of the majority of our cemetery operations. And he could probably tell you where the majority of the people are buried. But we are moving into, basically, he could retire anytime. And so we're trying to set up a plan for when that does happen, before he does end up leaving, hopefully not very soon. But we've been looking through several different options. We attempted to go with another solution that was considerably cheaper, but it just doesn't have the capabilities that we need for our system. And so going through that process, Pontum was one of the solutions that we originally looked at, but it was significant. It was almost double what this price was. By going through the other solution, we saved approximately 30 grand to come back to us. This solution will allow everybody, just anybody sitting at home, to be able to go through and do a search of our cemetery. So it'll bring us into the new age, technology-wise, and it just makes sense. Heather can probably talk quite a bit more on this, just because our two departments work hand in hand when it comes to the cemetery. But that's essentially the Cliff Notes version of where we're at.
Commissioner Eke?
Okay, I'm curious. Since I walk around cemeteries, I need to know how many cemeteries are we talking about that the city manages? There are several of them, and I'm trying to figure out which one's the city.
Nope, we just have the one, just
Just this
Riverside.
one by the
Yep.
river. Okay.
Yep, that's the only one we manage. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not even going to ask about how many people are buried there.
I couldn't tell you.
All of them.
It's an old city,
Thanks.
right? Don't even, I am not going to, I am curious about that. I will support this because I'm curious about that. I'm doing some work that has to do with that.
Well, we're not completely built out yet either, so that's another thing.
What
When
was
you
that
go
you said?
through and look at this system, it will actually show the ones that are still open, available for purchase. And you can do
Really?
a search of the people that are in the cemetery.
Interesting,
Commissioner Bush?
I have a couple of questions. So first of all, I think that the digital resources for ancestry research is really important and would be a good resource for our community and the larger community. But can you break down the numbers and the costs and that sort of thing? And also, I'm assuming that an investment in this will also save some future labor time in terms of, selling the plots and providing information to the community and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so right now, not everybody, but the majority of the people go to the Nelson Park shop to purchase sites. It's a little bit of a clunky system on how we handle it because we take the money there, we bring it here, the receipt then has to go through the clerk's office, and then it gets filed. What would happen with this system is they could come directly to City Hall, point out what site they want, go through the system, and it would actually be all computerized, and it would change, like say it's green to red or something like that immediately. The system itself is $36,000, $36,600. We will have a yearly rate, an annual subscription essentially of $4,700. That is actually less than what our subscription rate with the one that we can't use is gonna be. That one's approximately $8,200 or something like that. But just with phone calls and different things, people stopping in, it makes it a lot better for the resident as well, because now if they come to the clerk's office, it's much easier to be able to show them on the screen as opposed to, okay, let me set up an appointment with one of the three staff down there, so just operationally, it's going to save a lot of time and will allow our staff to get back to operations.
Commissioner Chapman.
I'm curious, what is the integration with the GIS in the cemetery? What was that in the?
So each one of those are actually, they own the land, like they're land, and so each one of those sections will be GIS.
Really?
So
That's
that is-
interesting.
Yeah, so it'll actually lay over top of the map on our cemetery, and it will
Okay.
be mapped out that way, so you can actually see the roadway going through, what section you're in.
Oh,
Because a
okay.
lot, I mean, they're all lettered, numbered,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
so you'll know where you're at.
Okay.
Commissioner Bush.
I'm assuming also this company's been around for a while and other communities have had good success with them.
And that's how we ended up getting to them. Just with other municipalities that we work with, they highly recommend it. It is a very large company and this is all that they do.
Okay.
Commissioner Chapman.
Are people gonna be able to purchase on the portal?
No.
Or- Oh, okay, so they still have
No,
to.
they will still need to
Okay.
come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So, okay, I want clarity. I'm gonna seek clarity here. So when they access it or they do a search to look at what is, they're just simply looking at it to see what is available, and then they come to the office to purchase and pay.
Yes.
All right.
But they'll be able to tell where, like, if they have family members, if there's sites available, plots available. We have a lot of families' plots, and so, like, if let's just say the grandmother purchased several plots, they'll be able to go online and see where all those plots lie, you know, in relationship to who's actually buried right now.
Okay, so currently, to do that, one would have to come to the office and ask for all of that information.
Yes, and some of that
That's
is
too much.
on printout and some of that is on the system, so.
Have you ever considered maybe a grant to do some of this?
We've looked at it, but we have not found any grant opportunities for this type of
Digitizing?
solution.
Really?
Yeah. Because I know in the past, we've actually had interns come in and put in go through all of our records and put them on the system, so.
Interesting. We should have a conversation.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I move that we approve a contract with Potem for the purchase of cemetery management software and accompanying budget amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to consider appointments of city boards and commissions. I'm going to give the floor to Commissioner Chapman.
So we've been trying to fill some positions for a while, and I think we found some great. I found there's some applications back from '22, and I called some of these people and said, "Hey, you still live in Mount Pleasant?" And I had some great conversations with a lot of people that really want to serve our community, and so there were four positions. One was the Dog Park Advisory Board, one was Parks and Rec, one was the 911 Advisory Board, and one was the Board of Review. And so I sent out an email with all hopefully you had a chance to read those, but did everybody get a chance to read? Does anybody have any questions about the four people?
I think they're strong candidates. So,
Yeah, and most of them have been a part of the community for a long time.
Yeah.
It was just interesting how involved they were with the thing they wanted to be involved in the city. So the person for the dog park, Haley, said she goes there 3 times a day. She said, I can tell you what people are complaining about. I can tell you what people like, and I think that's valuable to our community. So
I think, I mean, I read them. Somebody who's lived here for how many years? 30-something?
55 years, yeah.
55 years. I'm like, oh my goodness. You know, they also bring a lot of knowledge, you know, sort of, you know, knowledge from other areas, from working in other areas. So, and I think that's what we need. We need people who, you know, can work across sections, who can bring in, you know, knowledge from other, you know, experiences, and who are committed, you know, to serving, you know, in these committees, because they will stay, they will contribute.
Hey, Vice Mayor?
I think for the public record, it'd be good to have the names and what commission they're being
Sure.
asked to put on.
So Haley Held for Dog Park Advisory Board, Carrie Arrington for Parks and Rec, Kathy Tarrant for the 911 Advisory Board, and Joe Wentworth for the Board of Review.
Question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
If someone is interested in filling any of the other open seats that are out there, how do they go about doing that? How do they seek that opportunity out?
So on the website, there's all the open ones, and they fill out an application, and then it gets sent to manager's office, and then typically what happens, they send them to the committee, and we can look through them, and so this time I looked through them and sent an email to the committee and just said, if you have any questions about any of these people, you know, I think they were a good fit, and then we bring them to the board and to the commission and with a recommendation, and hope that they approve the people we recommend.
Well, my thanks to the people who applied, and my thanks to the committee for bringing forward a couple good candidates, so thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I move that we appoint Haley Held to the Dog Park Advisory Board, Carrie Arrington to the Parks and Rec, Kathy Tarrant to the 911 Advisory Board, and Joe Wentworth to the Board of Review.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right. Okay, we move on to our city announcements, or announcements on city-related issues and new business. This is where the commission and staff can bring forward any information that they have that might be happening in our community, or concerns that have been brought forward that they would like the staff to look at. Commissioner Bush.
I'm assuming we're probably all aware, but just to go on record, this week is the county fair. And also, a month from now, I believe the dates are August 23rd through August 25th, there will be a now annual event, Market for the Arts. And that's what I got for you.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
I just had a thought. This relates to our last meeting, that we had many people in the audience that were kind of expressing displeasure at the decision that we had in front of us about, you know, getting a new waste contract. And I knew many of the people speaking, and I just wanted to say, we did listen and hear you, but then we had to make a decision about that contract. So that's all.
Anything else? All right. Director Loria.
Thank you. I just wanted, for the people that are watching the meeting, the passing of previous Mayor Tillman, that she was a great person, very active in the community, obviously served on the commission in a couple of different times. I just remember her for her, you would never push her around, I can tell you that. She'd give it right back, and it was, I'm sad for their family. It's a big loss, but she's a very good person, and she'll be missed.
Yes, thank you. Is there anything else? All right, at this time, we're going to open up the floor to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. If you wish to make a comment, you may step to the podium. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you may use the raised hand feature or *9. If you're joining Zoom by phone, you'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom?
No raised hands, no emails.
Okay, I see somebody coming up to the podium, so we'll bring you on up.
Hello, my name is Joseph Carrion. I live 109 North Arnold Street. And primarily I want to talk about Rite Aid. It's right across the street from me and soon to be an empty building. I think it's too big for another marijuana shop to take it over, and I think the parking lot's too small, and the curb is put with a bunch of bushes, so I don't think a dealership's gonna wanna set their vehicles out there. Are there any plans we're looking at to get that building going? Because that's gonna be a larger project than a normal mom and pop size shop, right? This is a bigger deal. Where do that concerns go to? And
As of right now, the building's still not for sale, right? It's going through a bankruptcy process. And
Right,
so we don't know what the ownership of that's going to look like in the back end, if that is going to be essentially taken on by their debtors, or if that's going to be sold off as the process. So we don't know who's going to own that, and so we don't have plans for it at this time.
And there, like, no incentive for the city to step in yet? I'm just trying to figure out how that works in terms of, because frankly, now I just live across an empty building, which is kind of sad, but I mean, it is what it is, right? And the other thing I want to comment on, I didn't know there was a county fair. I'm still new to town, so that was good news to hear. But is there any way to get out there with public transportation? Are there regular routes for that?
I believe the Isabella County, I believe ICTC goes there.
Right.
They are doing
All right.
regular routes for that? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, isn't there anyone else that wishes to step forward and speak at this time? All right, I'm going to close the public comment. I'm going to ask the commission if they'd like to take a recess, or if we can move on. We take a recess?
Yeah.
All right. We will take a 5-minute recess. We'll return at 8:15.
Brian, I was so surprised the other day when I saw you going by on your bicycle. I was like, native landscaping. It was something that they excluded and did individually. We worked on that. We put a lot of work into that. And then hearing back from the community, we decided not to go forward with that after the feedback from both sides, for and against, saying they didn't like it. And I think if it works for us to just amend our current ordinance, not doing anything specific to native landscaping, but adding the spirit of what that is trying to accomplish into our current ordinance, I think that's great. But more than anything, as someone who's, again, has pushed on this, I want to just quickly thank my fellow commissioners and also city staff for the amount of time we've put into this and for coming back to it after we, changed course after public feedback. So I just wanted to put that out there to kind of start the conversation. I think Director Lauria, what you and staff have marked up here, I think this is good, and I think this will address a lot of the concerns, and it's a fairly simple, straightforward thing to understand. So I wanted to say thank you again to that, and yeah, I think this is looking good here until the next round of public comments, in which I'm sure we'll get shouted down again.
Okay, Commissioner Ake.
Okay, Commissioner Ake, I appreciate my colleagues' comments about this. As somebody who has a very, very extensively landscaped, yard, even before all of this, I understand, the need to define, the terms that we are going to be using, especially for people who are thinking, for our residents who are thinking of doing landscaping differently. And so we can't assume that landscaping is the same, okay? So, and this is part of this inclusion that we're talking about. It also turns out that some of the people who brought this forward happen to be my colleagues. I know them. So, and they are passionate about what they're thinking of. There are people who are committed to this community, but, it's the idea, they need to have a variety of ways in which we maintain our community. Not everybody wants a golf course for, a yard, right? Some people want golf courses, but not everyone wants that. So I appreciate this work. But is it possible to put this up on the screen? We don't have our computers. Commissioner, two of us don't have our screens up here. Well, it's not going to go far. So if we could just have it up on the screen, is it possible?
Can I hook my computer?
Just give it a try.
Yeah, Chris, sorry, complicating your life. Our computers locked us out. It's the system, it's like, yes. I mean, I can remember the language, but I don't want to do it. I want to just sort of really see it here, right? Just so that I know what I'm,
Okay. Take the sidebar.
This one?
Yeah.
Is that, take this off too? Or I can?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We can read that. Okay, I'm going to ask, because we put in there permit or maintain weeds or turf grass as an exterior property area to in excess of 12 inches in height. It says, for this section, weeds are defined as all vegetation other than agricultural crops, cultivated flowers, cultivated trees, or cultivated shrubs. How are we determining, because we're saying weeds in there, but then we have indigenous plants. Can we put in there, weeds shall be defined as vegetation other than cultivated crops, cultivated flowers, cultivated trees, indigenous grasses?
But how are you defining weeds as indigenous
I'm
grass?
It's excluding.
It's excluding.
I know, but I'm confused by the wording.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted it up there.
Yes.
So if you look at it as nothing changes in the ordinance, but the C allows the native grasses to exceed 12 inches. I don't want to mislead you, so nothing changes in the ordinance as it pertains to the way it's written today.
Yeah, but you
And
added
then we
turf.
add a paragraph in there about the native grasses which are allowed to exceed 12 inches.
Okay. But you have turf grass,
Well,
weeds or turf grass.
correct. And
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, but that is, if you have turf grass, we're not gonna allow that to go beyond 12 inches.
Yeah.
Because it's not native grass. You with me?
Yeah.
So if I just said grass,
Then it covers everything.
yeah, and I can clarify with the city attorney on that.
Okay.
If we need turf, but it'll just be a word change or something along those lines. I was just trying to delineate, again, between the native grasses, which maybe I didn't even need to put turf grass, because if it's not a native grass, then
Then
it
it
can't
doesn't
be
belong
beyond
there.
12 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think simplification, no, seriously, simplification is important.
I can get rid of turf grass.
Yeah, just,
Across the
yeah, cross it out.
Okay, I'll get rid of it.
I was laughing at
I just want to make sure.
You're looking at me, saying
Brian,
simplification.
Brian, I was laughing.
Yeah,
grass.
if it's not needed there, don't put it in there, because
Well,
then it will
but
confuse everyone.
If it says just grass, if it says grass, then native grasses are going to be lumped in there. So I don't want it to say grass.
No, native grass
But
is
I
fine.
want to, now I look at my front yard. It's a lot of clover, because I like clover in my front yard because it, increases the pollinators to come. And I mow high, so my clover gets a little higher than most. So I'm thinking, okay, what if I have, I was looking over here, they've got hogweed. That grows in there on the prohibited plants.
Okay, good. I
Okay.
was like,
You're like, where's that?
yeah,
Now, there's a hogweed, and that's a pretty common plant that can grow in areas that are not well-maintained. And in areas that are more sandy sometimes. So I'm wondering if, I'm just confused. I just don't want to, I'm thinking, devil's advocate is running through my head saying, well, what if somebody says that that's a weed and now you have weeds growing in your yard and you shouldn't, and that's one of those noxious plants and you didn't mean it to be there, but now it is. And
Mayor Pershbacher, everything is a flower until you don't like it anymore.
I know, but we're defining that.
That's weed.
Yeah,
It
but we're
becomes
defining
weed,
it.
yeah.
how is that different from today? If I were to
Yeah.
go into your yard and I say, Ms. Pershbacher, you have a hogweed here, I wouldn't know what a hogweed is, but you have a hogweed here, and that's prohibited. I think we can do that today.
Okay,
You can?
And so, the fact is that's not how we operate.
yeah,
It is more height-based.
okay,
And those noxious weeds like the Japanese knotweed that is just evasive, that's the word I'm
Yes.
looking for, evasive. And the, when I said see attached lists from Michigan Department of Ag, obviously that's gonna be in the ordinance
Yeah.
listed.
yeah.
I just didn't wanna spend my time.
No, I agree. Go ahead, Commissioner Bush.
Just for clarity, there was a discussion about the fact that that list may change. So what is the plan? Is there a plan to acknowledge that, reference that, maintain that?
I think it's if we allow it to be site-linked driven, we have no control over it. And I don't think that that's in our best interest.
No.
I think it's probably what City Manager Ridley and City Manager DeSenz has us do is on an annual basis is go through our ordinances and make sure that they're up to date, just as a matter of whether it's fees or whatnot. But I think that's the mechanism to do that.
But wait, I have a question. I have a follow-on.
Go ahead, just speak into the microphone.
Sorry, because I'm looking at this document. My apologies. So if the Michigan Department of Natural Resources or, becomes the informing, if that document is the informing document for determining what we accept, and that document changes, then it would seem to me that it is logical for our text to, because that's what we're following. It's not like the CDC says this, everybody complies. So that's what we're following. I mean, otherwise, we're going to have a headache where they change or they update their document, and then what do? We're not going to update ours, or we're not going to follow it, but we point to them as the informing platform or the informing framework.
Again, I completely understand what you're saying. I can go either way. I think it would be better if we listed them out in our ordinance and then did our annual review. Don't other countries ship seeds here?
Yeah, it's
to
a
try
lot
to
of
cause
work,
some
though.
issue? Yeah, and maybe those get added quickly.
Would it be possible to like at the start of like whatever section in which we're listing these, not linking back to anything, because I agree, links can go dead and everything. And it's also possible that I think it's MSU we're working with and everything, or Michigan Agriculture, they could potentially, for whatever reason, if they stopped maintaining this list. But in the ordinance, if we reference to like, we built this list
I
off
gotcha.
of this as of 2024.
Yeah, that's
And so
right.
that way, when you're doing your annual review, you can see, hey, this was last updated, we should probably review it and everything, or we should look for a more accurate source and everything. But at least it gives an indication of where it came from.
Yeah, the
and-
reference.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll reference it directly, but and when we do our annual review, it's then we will seek out the best updated sources and we'll present that to the city commission so that we can update it then.
The English professor would want us to cite our sources.
Yes, that's what exactly, I agree. Listen, I'm a researcher. If I don't do that, I will just, it's like committing suicide, all right? And I'm not about to do that. So no, we have, if that is a resource or informing, source, then we need to just reference it.
Well, if we reference it, but then say, we'll reference it, we're taking from there, but we have
Yeah,
our
we
own.
say, but as of this
Yes.
date, just like,
Yes.
the reference as of this date, this is what the CDC says or whoever says,
Yeah.
And then,
And then if there's ever any question, where did this guy get this list?
Yeah.
It's there.
yes, exactly. That way
And
you're not,
that doesn't take much.
yeah, and it's not,
Yeah.
and then you're not going to spend so much time worrying about updating it, That's
Yep.
going to be tedious if you have to do that manually every time. That's all.
Okay, so this is, I think that on number 1, this is what I'm getting confused by, because it's permit or maintain weeds or turf grass. I think what it should say is permit weeds or maintain turf grass on the exterior property area in the excess of 12 inches in height. Does that make sense? I think
I would take
that's
out-
what's confusing me.
I would
is-
take out the permit, just simply say maintain, what's.
That was not changed at all.
No,
This is from the old ordinance.
Yeah.
yeah.
So one more time,
If it says permit weeds
okay?
or maintain turf grass
Okay.
in the excess of 12 inches,
Do you want turf grass back in there?
I don't mind turf grass, I just want to make sure that,
Okay.
I think the turf grass is good because it also
Yeah.
speaks to like, again, the mission of what we're trying
Yeah.
to lay out here and
I
everything.
just want to make sure that we're understanding that we don't want people to just say, well, as long as I mow this to 11 inches,
Got it.
these weeds can stay. I can weed whip them down a couple inches and it's good, right?
Mayor Kashbaka, I can't imagine any resident taking a ruler or tape and going out there trying to measure how high they.
Sorry.
Okay,
I just-
but
I
it
just- mine
does,
is
it does help us understand, that we're trying to help individuals that have turf grass lawns or that have just regular lawns. They're
Yeah.
not turf grass, but they're a combination of weeds
Yeah,
and
I
grass.
understand.
That we want them maintained and we don't want any of the obnoxious weeds.
Beyond
The
this.
noxious, that are causing problems. Now, so tell me, if I have this thistle that's growing right outside on mine is growing on the other side of the curb. Do I have to take care of that because it's in the street? I think the mailman's upset with me, but
Those things are awful.
One more time, I'm sorry.
I have a
was
thistle.
getting your-
I have a thistle about this tall.
Yep.
Okay. Here's the curb.
Yep.
Here's the street. Here's the thistle. Am I responsible for it?
Yes, why is it still there?
Yeah.
Because I
Okay,
didn't
he
cut
said
it
yes.
down.
You see
It's
what I
not
mean?
mine. It's
But
not
it's
on my grass.
I'm coming
over with my gloves.
Oh, my God.
It's,
I keep
it
hoping the
abuts your
mailman will
property.
run over it.
It abuts your
Well, I
property.
think it's seeded now, so,
It's
I'll
like,
cut
it's
it.
like the
It is
clearing of
next to your
sidewalks and
yard.
snow.
yeah, I don't have a sidewalk.
I know, but you do have right away that you're
Yes.
responsible.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
responsible for it.
Okay, I'll cut that one down. I was just
Getting silly.
Just pull it out.
No, I'm not gonna pull it out. I'm just gonna cut it down.
It's the principle of the issue.
I'm just gonna, because then I can just have the finches come and eat the thistle. They like the thistle.
Yeah, they do.
Move it to your backyard.
That might be from
No.
your bird feeder,
No, I don't have a bird feeder.
your neighbors.
Okay. Any other comments?
We're getting silly here.
I think you've done some good work.
Yes.
Well, it was definitely a team effort. I'm just the typist, which I'm very good at. I'll get this in final format
Okay,
and get moving on it.
okay. Any other thoughts?
Thank you.
Good job, Director
Thank you.
Laureate.
Thank you.
We
All right.
we might come back to this again next year, when somebody else invents a new grass.
All right. We will close the work session. We do not have a closed session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All
You don't take my motion.
know
I will
it.
do adjourn.
right, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Chapman and a second by Rollins. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, we're out of here at 8:38.